Salvete mihi nomen est Stella, ad hoc est Batgirl the Oracle, the Barbara Gordon podcast, episode 248 for July MMXXIV. Batgirl the Oracle is brought to you by MileHighComics.com, your new and collectible comic book store. Mile High Comics has an inventory of over 5 million comics from the gold, silver, bronze, and modern age, and over 100,000 trade paperbacks. If you're not into the vintage stock, Mile High Comics also has a subscription service called the New Issue Comics Express, offering a discounted price for comics ready to hit the shelves. So if you're looking for vintage back issues or a great modern subscription service, be sure to check out milehighcomics.com. Well, as you can tell, the background is different and it's really quite plain and there's some good lighting. Yes, I am in fact in my new digs in Baltimore, and this is the first time I'm recording Backward to Oracle in this new location. I was thinking about having that one poster with with many of the DC Comics females in sort of Greek and Roman gear, but I actually ended up putting that in like a nice little end point of a walkway, a hallway. And so when I leave my room, I like see it at the end of the hallway, which is much better. So I need to figure out what to put behind me. And there's also a concern about fading of whatever I put there, because I would like to put an Ultimate Spider-Man poster that I've had since I was an undergrad, I think, that it was issue 100 and there are all these Spider-Men, and I really love that. And that could be a great background, but it would also be maybe a little deceptive as to why there's a Spider-Man background there and not Barbara. But I do have obviously a couple Batgirl posters, so I'll figure something out for next time. But yes, so I'm here, and the move was because I think everyone hates moving, and I can definitely see it. It was pretty stressful. The packing up seemed like I had enough time, and then even by the end, I felt like, oh my gosh, I could have used more time. But it was great because I got rid of things, and I kind of do a deep clean and think about, why did I even have this? Like, I found a bag filled with boxes of old cell phones, and I'm like, I understand why I kept this, but now it's like I have four different cell phone boxes in there and I can just chuck them. So it was almost cathartic to get rid of some stuff. And the space is, I came from a 429 square foot apartment and I have like 1,021 or something. So definitely, yeah, double at least. And even the movers were like, wow, this is much larger than your other space. What are you going to do to fill it? And I'm like, I'm not filling it. I think that's the problem, is people get this bigger space and then they want to fill it. And I'm okay. I like want the space, love having space behind my couch that I can walk or whatever I plan on doing. I was even thinking like, oh, if I get a Bozu ball, I could work out right behind my couch or do something like that. So yeah, I'm just super excited about it, and don't feel claustrophobic. And the move, I used two men in a truck, and I recommend them. Obviously, it's a case by case experience, I think, but it was recommended to me by somebody else, and the guys were great. They were gentle with my stuff, and then along the way when they were moving in, asking me like, where would you like this? And just me getting that say so of like, oh yeah, could you please put, these boxes here or something like that. And I'm one of those people that after a vacation or traveling, I immediately unpack my suitcase. And so I just wanted to get those boxes out as much as possible. So I think maybe 3 or 4 days I was able to get rid of all the boxes, and then it just came down to organizing. And I feel like I'm still kind of figuring out where I want to put things. But I've got, the bookcases, I'm like all set with that. And yeah, I got some things from IKEA, first experience in IKEA, which was a little overwhelming. And then I messed up because there was an entertainment center that I wanted to get because my TV and PlayStation has only ever been on a dresser. And I was like, let us, again, separation of space and spheres of functionality. Like, let's have those dressers in my room. And so I got this entertainment center. And number one, I thought it was black. And number two, I thought like there were two boxes, but I thought one was with this one type and two is with another. I didn't realize that they both went together. So I got a white one, which I didn't realize that there was like a little dot of color on there. And then I had to go back because as I opened up the instructions, there was this long board. And I'm like, I don't have that long board. So I had to go and get that, but put that together. And then I hired a muralist, and there's an awesome mural of the Aurora Borealis and some moose there. So I like really made the space my own, and super thankful to my dad for not only coming up a week prior and doing like a pre-move with fragile things and frames and stuff, but then coming up with me with the movers and then staying a couple days and helping me like put some frames up and putting things together. So ever so grateful for that. And yeah, I'm just trying to kind of get to know the city, but it's been so hot that it's not like I've been going out to explore too much. And then there are a couple things that I'm waiting because my good friend Harry is going to come up and or come down and visit because we're going to go see Alien Romulus together. And so I'd like to go to the aquarium, but I'm waiting for him to get here so we can go to the aquarium together. And of course, speaking of Harry and Donovan, we met up Cape Cod in June, and that was like a nice vacation. Nothing too wild happened. Um, and trying to think if there's anything else. Yeah, Josh and Dawn right now, as I'm recording, are in San Diego, and there's hope maybe that I'll be able to go next year. We'll see. And right now, yeah, I'm just like resting, I guess. I feel like I haven't rested for 3 years. And so there are just days that I kind of sit and read and do nothing. And I think I'm so programmed to always be moving or doing something or being productive that there's some guilt with that. But then I have to step back and be like, this is a vacation before, or, a break before it gets really heavy. And it's going to be a lot. And I've met with my Latin predecessor 2 different times. The first time I left, like feeling very overwhelmed. I've never had 4 preps before, which, if you don't know what that means, is each class would be considered, no, let me rephrase, each course would be considered a prep. So, like preparation. So, like Latin 1, that's one prep. If I were to have 3 Latin 1 classes, that's still one prep, unless there was some sort of reason or like a really intense differentiation going on. And I typically have 3 preps. There was one year I had like 3.5. I was getting really close. But this year I have 4 because I have 4 distinct classes, one of which is a combo, and I'm still not sure like how much I'm going to like make it different for Latin 5 to 4, but that it is a lot of work. So looking through the curriculum because it's a new book that I've not used it when I was tutoring my little Latin acolyte, and then Latin 4/5, that combination, I'm going to do a survey of poetry. And so that first day or after that first meeting, came home and I just like sat there and I just have to like think about things. And I had this idea of like, I'm just going to do Marshall and an Ovid and do Catullus in between. And so kind of have a buildup of difficulty. And then as I was sitting and thinking, I'm like, wait, I could do it thematically. And so I have this cool idea. I still have to set it out, like, how am I going to organize it? But start with invectives or insults to like really grasp them because man, they can get really rough. Like I had to look through because there are some great invectives by Catullus, but you're also like they can be misogynistic, homophobic as well. So you like got to cut out those. But like, yeah, talking about appearances. And so I'll do Catullus and Marshall with those. And I think tie it somehow to Shakespeare because Shakespeare has a lot of awesome insults. And then love with Sulpicia, and so a female writer, Catullus, who loves Lesbia, obviously. Some everyday life stuff, I think, with Marshall and Horace, like the country mouse and the city mouse, I think will be great. History, I'd love to do the Perilia from Ovid's Fasti, and then science fiction, and in science fiction with Lucretius, who's a favorite of mine, but really difficult. And then I'm trying to zoom in on like, what am I going to do? Am I going to talk about atoms? Am I going to talk about free will. Am I going to talk about death? I don't know. And then end with Ovid and Daphne and Apollo and Echo and Narcissus, and have this final project talking about disordered loves and having the students like connect it to modern love songs and things like that, and have them create their own poems. So that's like the outline of what it is. The others are following a text, so I don't have too much freedom there. The freedom will come from projects as well as mythology, I think, because there's a lot of culture and history. But this text starts in 64 AD, and that's not my forte. I'm better knowledge wise with the monarchy and the republic. And so jumping into the empire, like I'm going to have to bone up and read with that, starting with, yeah, Nero. And I think the text ends with his assassination or something like that. So a lot to get into, and I was kind of spiraling at one point, having kind of a man, am I a fraud, and like, oh, so I just have to step back and be like, you were hired for a reason, you know what you're doing, you might be a first year here, but it's not your first time, so just got to go in with a positive attitude, and I'm also honestly prepared for, the students acting like students and really trying you and testing you to see if you're up to snuff. So at least I'm mentally prepared. But that's, yeah, kind of been my life, going to the pool sometimes, reading. So yeah, I think that's about it. There was, a snarky, I don't know if I'll be able to find it, but the good Professor Coca sent me something very snarky about the previous episode. So I can't really, um, let's see. Oh, yes, here it is. You must really have to get to your packing, because other than making sure to take a few minutes to say crazy stuff about me, that was your shortest intro ever. Great job. Like, I don't know what to say. Crazy, but true. So that was a bit of a longer one, but at least to bring you up to speed. Yeah. So getting into it, um, I was sad to see that Infinite Crisis is on the horizon, um, because a lot of stuff goes down there. What's really interesting about Infinite Crisis is that we are, I mean, besides this podcast itself, very much eating its tail, and coming to where my beginning was. I'm trying to see all my windows. This was really, this time in DC Comics was really where I started being serious about reading and understanding storylines and characters, as well as the same time in Marvel, which was really Civil War. Like, this is where I dove in and was like, okay, I think I'm going to be a serious comic reader. So to see that countdown to Infinite Crisis #1 was, around this time, I definitely was like, oh boy, we're getting into it now. And I know that there are some big changes coming, and of course, Dick and Babs and that whole thing, and then the 1 year later business. Oh my gosh, yeah, it's just going to be waves of nostalgia. I can talk to you all about that. I It was actually sad reading, and I'm just going to do really a quickie on this, but it was sad reading DC Comics, the countdown to Infinite Crisis #1, because I think at the time that I was reading it, I really had no context for who Ted Cord was, as a Blue Beetle. And so as you're reading it, it seems sad, I think, even from the surface, that he feels like there's something sinister going on, but no one's listening to him. And then his tearful goodbye to Booster when Booster's in the hospital and telling that nurse, like, don't tell him not to go after me. And then even had I been reading Birds of Prey with Barbara thinking about Ted, but there was, yeah, no context. So reading it back then, like, I think I probably would have perceived it as, oh, this is sad. Ted gets killed at the end. But now, having been consistently reading and reviewing Birds of Prey and knowing that they had that relationship and that he's been helping out the birds recently, there was a potential for more. And knowing who he is, I think, emotionally or deep down, what type of good guy he is, and see how he's just like ignored by, yeah, the superhero community, because that was just really the beginning there, just like people kind of passing him off. Batman, um geez, yeah, all these people just kind of like putting like, yeah, it's no big deal. Booster, I think, is the only one who really gives him any sort of attention, which makes sense since they're so close. And then unfortunately for us, well, he's killed at the end by Maxwell Lord, which I remember this particular scene. Let me get to it. If you're watching this, yeah, well, just that one panel of him getting shot in the head is again, I think, a powerful panel. But if you don't have any context for the character, you're just like, uh-oh, this Maxwell Lord guy is not a good guy. But how much of a fight that he puts up and figuring out everything. Uh, very sad. So I mean, I've already kind of gone through it, but May 2005 was the cover date. Writers Jeff Johns, Greg Rucka, Judd Winnick, artists Ed Benes, Rags Morales, and Jesus Saez, Ivan Race, and Phil Jimenez. Inkers Michael Blair, Jimmy Palmiotti, Mark Campos, and Andy Lanning. And so it's a one shot dealing with the fallout from Identity Crisis while transitioning into the four titles leading into an Infinite Crisis, including the OMAC Project, Villains United, Day of Vengeance, and the Rann-Thanagar War, which is interesting because there's one page dealing with the Rann-Thanagar War in here. It's like, I guess that's all they needed. With Ted Cord, the Blue Beetle, viewing the world as getting to be a darker place, he tries to investigate who is under all these unusual acts. So he hunts around for the suspects while his business goes into a downward spiral. Lots of money is being taken from his accounts, and he, yeah, doesn't seem too upset about it, even though Barbara's like, maybe you should look into this. He finds the villains he was looking for in his investigation, and then it ends with obviously him getting killed. So the birds are waiting to take off from the hangar, and we find out that the payments that Ted is responsible for have lapsed since he had, like I said, 20 million siphoned from his account. And then he's investigating this, but no one save Babs really takes it and him seriously, which makes the issue, I think, even more sad. And we'll see this, I guess, in the third issue that I cover with Birds of Prey, just the impact or the effect of Ted, because Ted will be missing. But yeah, so Barbara is here, obviously, so that's why it's more of a quickie than a full review. And I think I also forgot that this was a connection to Identity Crisis, which is, of course, one of my favorite stories. But you realize that, I mean, with Dr. Light being like, these people have messed up, and then also Batman trying to figure all of that stuff out. So yeah, so I guess I'll move on into the regular review. So I'm going to do a 3-issue arc called The Battle Within. And I realized at the end of part 3 that I could have gone on because it ends on a cliffhanger and the arc is not resolved, but I guess it just means that you viewers and listeners will be on the cliffhanger as well with me. So it begins with Birds of Prey 81. And this is part 1, Undefended Border, June 2005 is cover date. Writer Gail Simone, penciler Joe Bennett, inker Jack Jadson, and colorist Hi-Fi Design. Black Canary and Wildcat, one of my crushes, go undercover to an island in the Republic of Singapore where they have a conversation with the drug lord. After a meal, Black Canary gets on an elevator and 5 men get on the elevator with her and attack. When the elevator doors open, Wildcat enters and the two beat the thugs. Later, Wildcat and Canary are told to prove their loyalty to the drug lord they met earlier. To do so, they must kill a Singapore detective. Meanwhile, Helena Bertinelli, whoa, Creote and Savant break into a restaurant where Bertinelli tells the crime syndicate members assembled that she has come to claim her birthright. So she has returned. So first of all, looking at this cover, we have my crush, another Ted, but Ted Grant. And we have the Zodiac, which makes sense once we are inside. And I mean, not too bad with the cheesing, but the butt shot. Because actually this is pretty would say conservative comparatively. Plus, Ted is in the front, so we're showing off some of his assets, but not all of his aspects because his fist is right there in front of him. So it's not too bad. And I like them teaming up. That's one of the Cat and the Canary, one of my favorite Justice League Unlimited episodes. So just some things about this particular issue. And then, of course, at the end of this arc, I'll talk about it as a whole. So Helena has been gone for 2 weeks, and which is what we're told in the comic. And in those 2 weeks, she was able to find Savant because remember, Savant was missing, and wrangle Creote somehow. And now they have their own little band. I have questions about how this all came about. I don't know if we're going to get that background. We do not get that background in these 3 issues. So that's definitely I would like to know how that all came about, but it's interesting to think that Helena, after that betrayal by Barbara, she leaves the team and then decides to go her own way. And this is the mission that she decides to go her own way on, but realizes that she needs somebody else with her and thinks, I'm going to get these people. But even who was it? Was it Zinda? Zinda saw naked Creo. Zinda didn't know where Creo didn't know where Savant was. So it's just a lot of like, how did this all happen? I hope that is resolved somehow and those questions get answered. I love that, as I said before, one of my crushes, Ted Grant, is here, and I always enjoy scenes with him and Dinah. And I feel like he's written well and comically and almost taken out of time, almost like he doesn't really fit into the natural order of things. And then when he puts on this like pretend accent, it seems like that really does fit, who he is, kind of a 40s 50s a dick or like detective or something like that. But I enjoy what he does in their relationship here, which we see develop, or at least see how strong it is throughout this arc. So we're leaving the domestic side and going to Singapore. That was, one of my questions about the nature of the Birds of Prey team and whether, is the expectation that they are only doing missions in the US or should they be doing international things as well? And now that we have moved beyond Barbara's little scheme to help people out mentally, I guess we'll see maybe what the birds are doing and going where there is need. I'm not sure exactly what it means that, according to the narration from Dinah, that they decided to trust love in business. She mentions this again, and it was obviously connected with Ted. So, okay, that works. But does this also decide the missions somehow? Does trusting in love in missions mean she I guess they are working on their relationships. And so there's no more, um, I don't know, double meanings to the missions, and that they talk about what we can potentially do together to help. I don't know. I don't know what that means. We do have an evil version of Fruits Basket here, which, if you remember, it's all about the zodiacs in that particular anime. And even though that does get kind of dark at times, not as evil as this. There weren't drugs involved, though there was abuse. And then the elevator scene reminds me of Captain America Winter Soldier, which is I think it continues to be my favorite Marvel film, to be honest. And it was, I feel like she could have taken them. That space was so constricting. It was hard for her to move, but I'm glad Ted was there and he knew that something was going to go down. But okay, I think that's it for 82. Yeah, if any of you out there understand what it means to trust love in business, I'd like to know what that means. Guess if you're putting friendship first, but then I don't know how that decides your mission. So if you understand what that means, please let me know. So then we move on to Birds of Prey 82, The Battle Within Part 2, The Long Count. July 2005 is the cover date. And writer Gail Simone, penciler Joe Bennett, inker Jack Jadson, and color Sci-Fi Design. Instead of killing the detective, Black Canary and Wildcat attack the assassins. Back in Gotham, and there's a little bit more to that, so this was coming from the DC Wikia. Um, Basically, Black Canary plays mind games and also uses the power of shame because shame is big in. If I were to generalize, I will say shame is big in East Asian cultures. It does come in here, so I will at least say that it is involved in this particular story. I know that it's big in Japan, so it could be too much of a generalization to say that it is all East Asian cultures, but she basically says that like we've been disrespected and this is not what your boss would like, and the other guy's like, yeah, it's right, we did this incorrectly. So there's a bit more of that. Back in Gotham, Bertinelli blackmails the mob into accepting her as a mob boss because, of course, Savant he's able to always get blackmail. That's his kind of MO there. In Singapore, Black Canary and Wildcat have been taken captive by the assassins. Canary makes a deal with one of the assassins to fight him in single combat, so long as he lets Wildcat and the detective go free. The assassin agrees, and as they fight, Wildcat fights the assassins inside the house because he kind of realizes what's up. And then the boss comes and ends up saying, like, well, you have shamed this house. Like, what are you doing? So the shame thing kind of worked. And it was as if, I mean, Black Canary knew what she was doing. The cover, we've got some playing cards with Zinda, Barbara, and Dinah. I'm interested in, we've got two queens and an ace. Oh, there's a king down there. Sorry about that. Ted is also there. Who knows who is holding it, whose fingers those are. Could be Helena's, I don't know. And then you have, are they well, ninja stars? There you go. So not too bad. Short-handed. Would say it's okay. I mean it's an interesting thematically, but I wonder if it actually fits what's happening. So the biggest surprise from this particular issue is that Josh is back. Now you might remember Josh being that really eager guy that Helena went on a date with, and she also slept with him, and it was very shocking and confusing. And I think maybe we've seen him like twice before, but all of a sudden he was used here to not bug, but track one of the mobsters' vehicles because he acted as a valet. And I thought that was interesting, especially because it's like Savant, Creote, Huntress, and then Josh. And is this when he calls her? Oh, maybe not. No, the other one is when, yeah, I don't know how he's not been beaten, but just realize that Josh is back. I am surprised that Helena allowed that man to touch her in the way that he did, and that he still has all use of his limbs. The Veil of Death is around this arc because of the references to Sue Dibney and Stephanie Brown, not to mention Booster calling Babs to help him find Blue Beetle, whom we know is dead because we read that Countdown to Infinite Crisis. And then Babs is in a bad way, and it's not just her tummy. So it's not, we've got like this main mission going on. We've got Huntress doing her own thing. And then um, people are dying or in a bad way, and it's like I don't. Everyone's off doing their own thing. What's going to happen? It is or was interesting way of using the narration boxes to circle back and use the same ones at the end as at the beginning, talking about Ted. So using a ring composition, as it were. So I can very much appreciate that because we saw Ted in the ring in the past and talking about him. And then as we end with the fight, talking about him as boxer once again. I think this issue should be used as evidence as to why Dinah is definitely in the top 10 fighters of the DCU. I'm not going to be one to sit here and like list off who they are. I think we can all come to some agreement of the names, but it always comes down to the order. And I'm not going to do that here right now. But I mean, these are the 12 best fighters. These were all the sons of oh, he's dead now, of like an ancient master. He had all of these wives and impregnated them to be sure that each of them were born in a different month. So, like, the zodiac was represented, and then taught them everything he knew, and then had them kill him at the very end. And so they are the best of the best. And here she is, like, holding her own with this particular person. And I think there was a comparison made to Shiva um, with these assassins. So just good evidence there. Unpopular opinion might be that Zinda is a bit of a backseat driver here. And if I were Babs, I would be annoyed because she basically is offering commentary on what's happening, and it's up to Babs to find the solution. So, like, seeing on page, something bad is going down with Dinah, like, oh no. And then we will hear from Zinda what is actually happening, and then of course, she'll ask like, "What are you going to do?" And yeah, Babs is the one who has to solve it. So I'm not really sure. Plus, she keeps calling her Skipper. I mean, why can't you do something to help? Luckily, Zinda is there because, again, like I said, Babs is in a bad way with this virus that is creeping through her body, and she's the one who reaches out and, I guess, is in the next one to get Dinah to come back because of Barbara's condition. But other than that, she's not very helpful. Like, what exactly? Well, she will help out in the third one because she is the pilot. But I wonder what her background is fighting wise. Um, I will be interested in seeing what her capabilities are if really there's a big need for her, and they're down. I mean, if we do say that shorthanded, the fact that we don't have Huntress anymore, I think we lost a heavy hitter. So we'll see if Zinda can fill that vacuum. Okay, and then we are ending with Birds of Prey 83, The Battle Within Part 3, A Fighter by His Trade. August 2005, the cover date. Writer Gail Simone, penciler Joe Bennett, inker Jack Jadson, and colors Hi-Fi Design. Huntress tracks down and captures a criminal called Casuelo Trejara. She gives him a card and tells him to call the number on it and asks to be put into witness protection because she's basically set him up so that it seems like he was informing on the mob. So now he has to help her. Back in Singapore, drug lord Tan, so that this is the big guy, stops the fight between Black Canary and the assassin brother Rabbit. On Airy 1, Barbara Gordon is trying to find Blue Beetle. Canary and Wildcat return to the Airy 1 where something strange is happening to Gordon. F-16s chase the Airy 1 and Zinda takes them out with some sort of energy weapon. And then Huntress goes to a meeting to take out a crime syndicate, big guy, and exiting the vehicle is someone else. And that someone else turns out to be none other than Dick Grayson, which is shocking. So we'll see what happens there. And yes, so here is our cover. We have the OMAC project tie-in. Sometimes it's hard to read. Reverse. We see a full Barbara Gordon. No handles. I forgot to mention that there are handles in the Infinite Crisis the countdown to Infinite Crisis, which was problematic. But this one, no handles. We see that virus kind of coming up. She's okay at the moment, but she won't be soon enough. But it's also a little bit misleading as if it's an OMAC virus, which I think that it's a Brainiac virus. But anyways, so there you go. She looks like she's fighting it. You kind of wonder what a cover would look like if it were her just like having the sweats and just like being in a fetal position on the ground. I guess like we want our female characters to look strong, so she's fighting it. Okay, so this is it. So Josh calls Helena baby boots, and he somehow gets away with it. And even Savant comments on this that he would be beaten within an inch of his life had he said something like that. I'm surprised because I think he is thanked by Huntress for helping them out. And he basically, for payment, thinks that maybe he could see under her mask. And she's like, absolutely not. But I also thought it was interesting that he hasn't seen under her mask, given the fact that she was Helena inside the restaurant and he was right outside the restaurant. I don't know. Savant's comment to Creo that Helena is the nice one is really interesting. And because I think if we were to look at the three main, like if we don't look at Zinda, maybe that's bias. I'm trying to think if I would think that if I would say that Barbara is the nice one or Dinah, who would be like the sweet one. I don't know actually, but it would not be Helena. Helena would not be my go-to to say, oh yeah, she's the sweetest one on the Birds of Prey. I might actually lean towards Dinah to be honest, but given all the interactions between Barbara and Savant slash Creote, it totally makes sense that he would say that. I mean, she has to be stern given their background, and Dinah's not going to be nice to them either. But I think Huntress is able to reach them on a different level because she's like, she was being treated the same way as, one step from going too far. And so I think that they're almost kindred spirits, and she can use them and their abilities and their MOs, I think, um, they meet her where they're at, I think, whereas Barbara would not allow that. So I think that it was an interesting thought that came out, and it definitely makes sense. It's now clear, obviously, from this that the split team is working on the same case, but in two different sectors because it's all about drugs, basically. And Dinah and Ted are trying to cut off, like take all of the drugs out. And then they basically got it, which I don't know where that money is coming from or what money they've proven that they can give to Tan. But Tan was calling all of the people that he was supplying and be like, I'm so sorry, like, got somebody else now. And so now the people in Gotham are really upset because that was their supplier. So they're both working, or both of these groups are working on the same case. I feel like it's going to be one of those things where because there's a lack of communication, something's going to blow up in their faces. And this is even true, I think, at the end with Dick popping up because no one knew. I think he was undercover. And I guess why would he necessarily communicate with, he's not communicating with Barbara. He's not going to communicate with Huntress. But there's like another issue of like, oh, great. Am I going to be, is my cover going to be blown? So this is really interesting that we've got three different groups working on this same case and what's going to happen. I was hoping, like I said, that we'd see how Helena reached out to Zafon and Creo, but perhaps that will come later. I'm really not sure. At least one issue is left given this time. I mean, there's a lot going down. There's a lot unresolved, obviously. So there's at least one. I don't know if that would be background that we would get just out of context. Oh, well, now that Nightwing's here, she could potentially talk to him and give that background. The only other way is if everyone realizes they're working the same case, but at different angles, that then there's a conversation about how did you get into this? How did you find Savant? But I feel like it has to be coming. That would be a glaring, I don't know that anyone could accept that Huntress is with these two guys without explanation. So I'm hoping that that comes into play. Babs in a bad way, as we said, multiple times. And then we get, yeah, a heartfelt moment where she mentions Ted Cord and his technology saving them once again, because really that was what helped them out of that bind with the F-16s. Now knowing that he's dead, I mean, she's worried about him. Booster obviously contacted her, but it's hard being the reader and knowing what that is. Like, oh dear, she didn't really, you never have a chance to say goodbye sometimes to people. I shouldn't say you never have a chance. Sometimes you don't have a chance to say goodbye to people. I do, like I said, I may have missed it, but what funding is Dinah and Ted using to convince Tan to offload his drugs? I feel like you need proof that you can pay for it before he's actually going to give them to you. And I feel like money hasn't come up yet. And I think yeah, I think that's mostly it of all those. It's clear I ended on a cliffhanger, which I didn't know. So I guess I'll be picking up here next time to see what that this resolution is in this particular arc. And I think it was okay. I mean, it's difficult to go from the previous arc, which had such heightened emotional beats, and then that ending just with like extreme betrayal, or at least like doing things with a good heart but wrongly, and going to here where it's like business as usual and no one's really communicating or rehashing about that. um, so that's a bit strange, but perhaps if again, I think if every one of these three groups come together, there could be some resolution, or heads will again be knocking up against each other. I will say, even though my books are in bags, so I'm not going to pull it out, but the way that Nightwing and Huntress began their tussle, and then I think it ended with Huntress on the bottom on the street and Nightwing on top, I was like, we better not be treading this old ground, because that's you're not going to be repairing anything with Barbara if this picks up again. So I don't know if they get back together. You, dear listeners, know more than I. We are beyond, I think, what I have, yeah, read in Birds of Prey consistently. So this is all very new to me, which is fun. But yeah, looking forward to see how these three groups end up intersecting. I think I'm gonna give this, yeah, maybe. I think an eight, 8 out of 10 knuckle sandwiches delivered by my boyfriend, Ted Grant. Um, yes, lots of questions. I think it's almost like incomplete. Like I almost feel like maybe I shouldn't rate it because there's a lot going on that we don't know, and there's a lot to be resolved. But there we are. Okay, well, I'm going to move on to listener emails. First up, a comment on the YouTube episode 247 from Hornacek. Sorry, I was thinking, oh my gosh, did I say the right episode? I'm honored by the sponsorship, but I'm a little bit confused. Are these regular popsicles, but the wooden sticks are replaced with actual pieces of fried calamari? Or do the popsicles themselves taste like fried calamari? Or are they regular popsicles, but the wooden sticks taste like fried calamari? Inquiring minds want to know. Yes, that was bad PR for me in advertising, and I actually got some blowback on it from my agent that I needed to be more clear about that. I think it was just in a rush and I was throwing some things in there, but it's just fried calamari sticks. So the calamari and then they're fried. There shouldn't be any popsicle business. Yes, that's basically it. So you can, however, in your grocer's freezer find versions that are just the meat and the breading, or you could find some that you can eat like a corn dog. But we'll just, for the sake of brevity and simplicity, say fried calamari stick. So I do apologize to that. about that. And then from Earth to BFF, Shayna. Hi, Stella. I love seeing Zinda and Helena integrated more into the team in the Hero Hunter storyline. As much as I enjoyed the Birds of Prey when it was just Dinah and Barbara, these four together will always be who I think of when I hear the Birds of Prey. The four have great chemistry, and I love that we get to see that in some moments of downtime between them, like the bar scene or when Black Canary and Huntress eat at a restaurant together. I've probably said this before, but it is really the bond and relationships between these four women that make me love Simone's run. It always reminds me of my own experiences working with other women on a team. In regards to Kelly Thompson's issue number 9 and 10, I really like where this arc is going. On the whole, Thompson's arcs are building on one another, which feels a lot like most of Simone's run. I hope Thompson continues to have one arc lead to another. I have always had an affinity for plots that allow us to get into characters' heads, so these last two issues have been fun for me. I agree that I did not really understand Barbara's mind projection in the portal, and I wonder if we might get an explanation for it later on. I hope we get a chance to see projections for everyone else on the team. I would really be curious to see Thompson's vision for each character. I laughed out loud at the quote unquote return of Velvet Tiger, classic. Yeah, you were the only one laughing. I was rolling my eyes. And don't even tease the Kelly Thompson Big Barda Cass Buddy Cop book. I would devour a book like that. Cass and Barda have such a great dynamic in this run. Shayna. P.S. Good to hear that you enjoy the Telegraph Club. It is on my reading list since I'm a huge fan of Melinda Lowe. I definitely recommend her other books if you haven't read them already. Yes, that was the only one of hers that I have read. It was lent to me by my good friend Tom Panarese, and he recently told me he read another one that I think is more contemporary in terms of setting, but he was teased on the back that you got to see like a follow-up. You got to see where the main characters from the Telegraph Club ended up, and he said that that was like a big old tease because they were barely in it, and it was like a blink and you miss it moment. I can't remember what book that was that he told me about, but I could definitely put that on my list. I got one of the first things I did, or like definitely a priority, was to get a Baltimore Public library card. So I do have that. Already have two books out, so we shall see. But thank you, yeah, thanks for writing in, and yeah, we'll keep pushing and seeing what this chemistry is with this Birds of Prey team. That's a bit fractured, I guess, and everyone has their various issues coming into it, but thanks to people who write in, people like you. Remember, you can email me at backrolltoracle@gmail.com. You can post on the YouTube, obviously. And I guess that's about it. So I'm going to take a break. When I come back, I'm going to cover Birds of Prey Volume 5, number 11. But first up, it is Zaius's Radio Hour featuring So Yesterday by Hilary Duff. See you soon.